Corridor of Uncertainty, the podcast at the intersection of maths and sport. I'm Jess.
And I'm Rich.
We're both mathematicians at the University of York. And today, we're super excited to welcome friend of the show, James Reade from the University of Reading. Welcome to the Corridor of Uncertainty, Professor James Reade.
Hello.
Thanks for coming. So, we thought we've got all sorts of football seasons under the way, about to begin. So we thought it'd be fun to have a go, after the success of your World Cup predictions, you two. Well done.
Yeah,
I mean, you called the final.
Well, I had
you had what it was like.
Spain as the overwhelming favourites, and to be honest, they played through like the overwhelming favourites.
But you had Spain. James Reade had Argentina, so that was the hidden final that the public may not have realised. Elo versus Dixon Coles. Reade versus Bingham.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Spain versus Argentina.
It was the last stages were all kind of chalk except for England-France, which was the best game of the tournament, which was the hardest to predict, I would say, or the least likely to predict.
Anyway, so after the success, I'm not going to let it get to your head, but your success at the predictions in the World Cup, you thought we'd have a go at doing domestic football. So new season's about to begin. So you've both had a go at doing Premier League. We might throw in some other leagues because, the important leagues a bit later on. But do you want to kick off, pun intended, and tell us how you've had a go at trying to forecast what's going to happen in the Premier League, Rich?
Right. So we did have a look back at my Premier League predictions after the season, I think. And I had a look at
them midway through. Yeah.
Oh, no, quite late on, actually. Yeah. And then, and those were good. Then we looked at Opta's ones from the start of the year and realised how wrong they were. So in that spirit, I thought I'd also try to be quite wrong with my predictions.
Yeah.
So what I did, because I wanted to stick with Dixon Coles because it's the model with the infrastructure I'd got set up. But obviously, at this stage, there is no games to fit because we don't know how Ipswich are going to do against Arsenal unless you go back a couple of years, I suppose. But certainly Coventry, we don't know how Coventry are going to do against Man City.
So if people want to know about Dixon Coles, like you say, they can go back and watch that episode where you were predicting the end of last season and you can see in detail how this model works. But for now, it's just that's the infrastructure you're using to make some predictions. That's all we need to know.
All it does is it looks across a load of games and fits an attacking and a defensive strength. So what I did was I looked at across the last 10 years of Premier League play for all of these teams and fitted their attacking and their defensive strength. So we get one number that sums up their attacking and one number that sums up their defending.
So all of the teams that will be in the Premier League this season for the past 10 years. So you'll have Leeds in and out of the Premier League?
Yeah, so no, just took all the Premier League games from the last 10 years.
So the Premier League for 10 years. So you've not got 10 years of Leeds because they weren't in the Premier League?
No.
Right, got it.
No, so what I then did, this is the bit where it gets a little sketchy. So rather than take the teams, I took the positions. So this is now saying Arsenal won the league last year. So instead of then taking their attacking strength and defensive strength for next year, I took the first place team for their attacking and defensive strengths. And then so the previous year it would be Liverpool, and that's the first place team's attacking and defensive strengths. And this is why it's already raising eyebrows. On screen, we've got looking at last year's positions and the current year's positions across these 10 years. So you can see it's fairly correlated. It's a nice, roughly straight line, but teams tend to repeat their positions.
So what do you class as a previous position for somebody who's been promoted?
For people who are promoted, I give them 21, 22 and 23 based on their league positions in the championship. So 23 would be who won the playoffs. 21, 22, obviously the winner and the runner-up of the championship.
Okay, yep.
So that's then their previous position, and their current position would have been what they got in that year. So they can feed into it. So you can see from this plot, actually, the promoted teams, like where they've ended up, often they've ended up in those bottom three. These are the bar across the top. And some of the times they've done very well across these years as well.
Yeah.
So taking this data, each one of these data points, previous positions, gets an attacking and a defensive strength. And then this is where you thought that was bad. Where it really gets bad is I did the customary 10,000 runs of this year's Premier League season, of course. Well, what I did actually is I did first the 2025 to fit the method.
Yes.
And then randomly selected for each of the positions from last year. So Arsenal got one of the randomly selected winners this year, and then say Coventry got one of the attacking and defensive strengths from the promoted champions from the championship from one of the last 10 years. And each of this, so you did all of this for random, and that'd be one iteration of the 10,000.
So one iteration of the 10,000, you're simulating this season that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
So you need an attacking and defensive parameter for the 20 teams that are in the Premier League this year.
Yeah.
So every iteration,
So
you pull out of the hat
and
for Arsenal, because they were the previous winners, you'll pull out of the hat the attacking and defensive parameters of one of the winners from the past 10 years. Yeah. That will be Arsenal. So you'll do that 10,000 times. So you're only picking 10 things for Arsenal, but then that's times 10 for the second position team and third. And so
you're picking 10,000 times for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, from 10.
You're only picking from 10, but because of all the combos.
Combos, yeah, you're going to get 10,000 different. Yeah, you could easily 10,000 different iterations of the league. And
okay.
I can see some eyebrows being raised, but
innovative.
It was better than the other things I tried.
I just think anyone will have done this before.
I also tried something based on regression of the previous position versus the attacking strength, and based on the changes from one season to the next as well. And this method actually did best in terms of fitting the 2025 season. So this, I was testing it by Briar score. This was the best. It was still pretty bad, but it was surprisingly not much worse than using 2025's Dixon Coles parameters to predict the 2025 season.
Right. This wasn't.
Yeah. Part of the reason for that is because we can't use the weights, because we're not talking about any games. So we can't use the historical weighting, which is one of the good things in the Dixon Coles model. So what we can see in my predictions is the very likely winners are apparently Man United.
Confirmation in case we needed it.
I'm kind of surprised at how likely Man U are to win. That was a surprise.
I can't see the number. The box is so dark. What is it?
So it's up there around 50%, I think.
So where did Man U come last season?
So Man U were third last year. So what this suggests is actually the team that played third, that came third, quite often across those 10 years have gone on to win the next year.
Is that a true thing? We need to look back and see.
Well, maybe, but it's also across the 10,000 runs. So it's probably that like the team that played second didn't get over that hump as much. But because for one thing, a lot of the time it was Arsenal coming second, wasn't it? So yeah, Arsenal around, double figures, chance of winning the league. Man City similar. I think Chelsea the next as well. And that's not Chelsea. That's Chelsea's position they were in last year. So it's interesting as to the way that works. One of the things that I think that's a really interesting quirk is if you look at the relegation. I think
you can't see Leeds in there.
Forest,
well, obviously, this is a brilliant method.
Forest's league position last year suggests that they're actually quite likely to get relegated, whereas Leeds are quite likely to do well. So there's something about finishing 15th makes it more likely that you're going to go down, which is really random. But so I think they finished 15th last year, and that, as I say, is the number of teams I would guess based on. It's a little bit of a black box model because of these 10,000 different leagues. It's making completely random combinations based on that. But I'm going to bet that this isn't as bad as you think it is, because at the start of the year, nobody knows anything.
Nobody knows anything.
Nobody knows anything. Man City have probably not got Rodri, but they've got Anderson. They've made new signings. They've spent a lot of money. Arsenal have kind of tried to spend money, but maybe haven't. Liverpool, who knows how Liverpool are going to do. Chelsea got a new manager. He's a good manager, but they're still Chelsea or players underneath. It's completely, at this stage, nobody knows anything. There's going to be one, I would guess. I'd put money on there's going to be one relegation surprise next year.
You think? You don't think it's going to be 3 promoted go down?
Nope. I think there'll be one complete surprise from relegation and probably one mid-table team that end up, doing something completely different from normal.
Right. Well, you are putting your money where your mouth is, because this is now
bold prediction
there, and we will, like you say, we will review and see how well you did. But so just to summarise, then your top three, you've got Man U, Arsenal, then Man City, and then who's been relegated?
So the relegated teams most likely is Ipswich. So Ipswich are most likely to go down, followed by Hull and then Palace.
Palace.
Sorry, slightly more likely than Forest, as much as I should wish. So the black boxes on this plot, I should say, are people's most likely outcomes.
Right.
So that's why there's quite a lot of ties, quite a lot of teams most likely to be at the bottom of the table. But yeah. And Forest actually start the season in the relegation zone, but that's because it's alphabetical.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And much to your delight.
Yeah.
And then the key thing is that everyone's going to base, this is the most important metric. Where have you got Leeds United?
So Leeds are most likely to finish in, 14th?
Oh, well, on that, you agree with 442 magazine.
Sorry?
All right. No, you don't.
Leeds most likely to finish 8th.
8th?
8th.
Well, I really hope. Well, no, I don't. Do I want Leeds 8th more than more than I don't want Man U first? I don't know. But anyway, so hopefully this is...
Actually, a lot of, people who would think they know the game would say that, Man U and Arsenal both kept their managers. So that's going to be a good sign for the season. Yeah. But anyway.
Right, okay. Professor James Reade. Bring some sense to this discussion then. Have you had a go at forecasting the Premier League?
Yeah, so my connection is weak, but perhaps that's because of where I am, which, as you can see, is Boundary Park. There is the pitch down there. The goalposts are up, and the lines are drawn out for tonight's game against Stockport County. 3-season match. And yes, I've done some forecasts. We'll see how reliable the Wi-Fi is up at the top of the 100-and-something-year-old main stand here at Boundary Park. I'll check how often your mouth moves, and that'll tell me whether your connection is still going. Method-wise, so what I've been developing over the summer is a model based on wages. So as you're probably aware, Stefan Szymanski and co-authored a paper by Hall and Szymanski many years ago looking at the causal relationship between wage spend and outcomes. And they show that there is a causal relationship, the Granger causality method for football, or English football in particular. Didn't find the same thing for basketball. And if you talk to lots of sports economists, they'll say, wage spend of outcomes. I haven't been working on that for other reasons. So I've built that in. So the major variable is wage spend, which obviously you have data from years gone by, and you've got to project forward what wage spend will be for the season ahead. The way in which that's done is you project forward the median salary or salary bill for the division. I'm doing it for all 4 divisions. And then you look at how far in previous years any team was away from the median, and then you treat that as auto-aggressive. And so, in time, any club will return to the mean. If they're below, they'll get back to the mean. If they're above, they'll get back to the median. And yeah, basically that's what you do. So, and for example, if you get promoted, more often than not, you would go from having a higher than median salary to a lower than median salary. So, for example, Leeds United, when they were promoted, that was the last season for which there's full salary data. Leeds were paying a lot more than the median salary in the Championship at the time. So that a correction for that. Some of my models had Leeds doing very well in the Premier League this season, but it didn't correct for the fact that obviously Leeds' salary bill is not higher than the median Premier League salary bill. So with that then adjusted, because obviously if you're taking an auto-aggressive method, you can add in a W variable for the team promoted to the Premier League. So the salary bill jumps to being positive, above the median to below the median, and so on. And then I'm kind of interested in adding other things to this model. So I've got transfer fees paid, because then that allows you to take into account something like a rebuild at Tottenham. Otherwise, we might have Tottenham looking bad again for the current season, but they've shelled out many hundreds of millions of pounds on a number of players, and so you might expect that will have some positive effect. There was, of course, the manager. So I've got ELO ratings for the manager. We're developing a player ELO system, so that could be something that could be added in, as well as teams ELO rating themselves. And then finally, Rich, you've mentioned the Dixon-Coles method where you regress goals. So I'm doing that again, plus on regression, where you then have attacking and defensive strength for teams. So that all comes together. And again, obviously the World Cup was the World Cup where you had to think all these groups and best 8 third place teams. Obviously, the Premier League's just 380 games, and just go ahead, simulate them, and see who comes out on top. And so you've seen, you'll I'll put the graphic on the screen, and I'll split to mine for me. You'll see that therefore the predictions look, I think, a bit more conventional than yours, Rich, which doesn't
So
mean that they're correct.
you've done the obligatory 10,000 simulations.
I've actually done 100,000. Not that I think it makes much difference.
Oh, you needed a supercomputer then for this one. And so this is just recording.
Actually, if you don't need to do a dynamic updating of anything, you don't even need to have a loop. So you have a loop, it takes no time at all. So 100,000 versus 10,000 is a second or two.
So you simulate those 380 games.
Yeah.
Create a league table. So you'll end up with 100,000 league tables. And then that's what we can see here, the distribution. So there was there was once where Leeds got up to second. Is that right?
I mean, okay.
Yep.
Looking into this from top to bottom, you've got obviously Man City up at the top and Arsenal. And they're the most likely teams to finish in first and second. City slightly ahead. So I think I looked at it and City are about 58% for the title. They've got Liverpool a little bit behind.
Their whole box is between 1 and 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's solid. Yeah. One of the smallest boxes. Yeah.
And I think that's not controversial. They've obviously been there and thereabouts for a long, long time. And again, it doesn't mean that it will happen next season because obviously, they had a bad season before last, still finished, reasonably high up the table. So yeah, I mean, kind of, in terms of being wrong, in terms of big surprises happening, I don't think this really says, look, here are some huge surprises. It has. I mean, probably the biggest surprise, I guess, is Tottenham.
I would say, there are some big surprises. You have Tottenham bouncing right back, and you also have Sunderland sort of relegated regression to what people would think they should be doing, but at the moment not.
I mean, it's not factored in. I don't have European competitions factored in, but that's one of the kind of the stories you might tell, isn't it? You often see this for teams that come up, a few that do very well then, but you have to imagine that with Europe to contend with next season, it will be quite hard for them to have a season quite as good as they had this last season. And I guess also, Rich, from your unbiased perspective, NTG is Forest, so I do have them down towards the bottom there. I think their interquartile range goes between 13th and 17th, so just outside the relegation zone, but obviously they're going to be in the mixer there. Then, Jess, go on.
I like this method because it is kind of it's taking into account the changes that are happening, as in transfer spend and wage spends, but it's not biasing by they've lost X player in a way that's kind of like a lot of people will be, Forest are going to go down because they've lost Anderson, or somebody else is going to win the league now, they've got this player. There's not that kind of it's
not the
subjective thing. It is the economic information of those that's changed.
I like this. This plot with the boxes really reflects what we saw last season. This shape that it's kind of top looks like it's these teams, bottom looks like it's these teams, middle, huge range. You could be anywhere from 5th to 15th. That does seem to tally with what we kind of our experience of the league. So this is nice.
Of last season, but whether it's this season, that's
whether it's this season.
That's yet to see. And the one thing also that we're saying about that, kind of adding in dummy variables for each team, getting attacking defensive strengths, that essentially allows you to, as economists, what we call that is unobserved heterogeneity. Essentially, why in this context, why some teams do better than others. So I was running a similar model to this, but looking at the 21-22 season, which was Brentford's first season in the Premier League. And if you just look at wage spend, Brentford were nailed on to get relegated. And of course, we know that Brentford perennially doing much better than their wage bill suggests. And so by adding in these kind of fixed effects, how good our teams, you can allow that to come into the model. And so you can see Brentford are, they're just behind United. In what, 3, 6, 8th, which tallies with where they've been in recent seasons, with obviously a range. That range could have them finishing down as as far as 11th within the interquartile range, but also as high as 6th. So it kind of reflects the fact that them and Brighton, 2 positions below, kind of bracketing Chelsea. So again, who knows how good Chelsea will be? Good manager, lots of old players now, and yeah.
Chelsea are just in that analytic sandwich, aren't they? There, a sensible sandwich with Chelsea in the middle.
You've got Leeds there, Jess. Leeds are above Everton, above Forest. Not totally safe, but of course, in that kind of middle of the pack.
Yeah, very, very comparable with Fulham and Bournemouth, and only slightly behind Palace too. So yeah, that's probably a reasonably comfortable season.
Yeah, like I say, hopefully it's like we've tipped ourselves into that bunch that could finish anywhere, and we'll see it's a lottery. It's that ceiling, isn't it? Getting out of the probable relegation pack and into the middle pack. So it's over that hurdle, and hopefully that's enough.
And so you have Sunderland, Ipswich, and Hull going down, but Coventry looking like they're just pipping Sunderland on that relegation, which is
similar, don't they? Yeah.
I mean, it could be like season just gone, where two established teams, drop off the radar. It's not possible. It's obviously hard to say. I mean, I guess you might, with hindsight, you might say, "Oh yeah, I've seen Wolves coming a mile off. They were looking ropey the previous season." But yeah, I think it is hard to see who that team might be. And if it's Forest, you almost don't really feel like they're an established team yet, despite the fact that I guess they feel that they're an established team. Fair enough. Few seasons up now. But yeah, I mean, this again, it reflects how the Premier League has been for the last 4, 5, 6 seasons, where promotion teams really do struggle. So that's the obvious prediction to make. But maybe it's different. Hopefully it is different as well, because it would be nice to see a bit like last season, where it isn't just the same teams up and down all the time.
Yeah. I think that was a lot of people's predictions at the start of the year, was the 3 up, 3 down, same teams. But obviously Sunderland managed to escape at that time.
As
did another team from around here. But
I think the thing that the reason that you would argue that would happen is the massive discrepancy in terms of salary, wage bills, budgets. So the fact that your model's taking that into account and still not suggesting that they'll go down is maybe hopeful that there is this ability to make that leap. So for posterity then, who's your 1, 2, 3?
For me, it's City, Arsenal, Liverpool.
Your bottom 3 are
Hull, Ipswich, Sunderland.
And Leeds are? You get bonus points if you get Leeds bang on.
3, 6, 9, 12, 14th.
14th, yeah, so that's similar. 442 magazine have got Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Man U in 4th.
Yeah.
The relegated Forest, Ipswich and Hull, and Leeds 14th. They don't super explain how they've come about that, but maybe they've cracked out the supercomputer.
Yeah. I imagine they've got some understanding in it as well too. We're really a good manager, that sort of things. But yeah.
I think you're right. The Sunderland, the Europe factor is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And all these new managers, it's always the same, isn't it? But it feels this season like there's a lot more uncertainty.
Yeah. So
we don't know what Man City is going to look like.
Yeah. As you're at Boundary Park, home of the Latics, Oldham Athletic. Perhaps we could talk about your League Two predictions as well for the year. So what's your where do you think Oldham are going to finish this year?
So, I mean, I think, the instinct is to say a little bit better than last season. The recruitment so far has been good. We've signed Papaya Forson from Southend, Scott Morris from Southend, Elliot Nevitt in from Cambridge Gillingham. I don't remember exactly where he was. And then we've got a few other players. in as
Ollie
well.
Norburn.
Yes, Ollie Norburn, hopefully not getting himself sent off for throwing boots.
Yeah.
And these are all, I think they're kind of incremental upgrades to the squad. I think it's generally regarded. One of the biggest signings was actually the re-signing of Manny Monte in defence. He's, I think him and Daniels last season formed a very strong partnership. If they can keep that together again this season, they should be able to do okay. In terms of the model, so the method that I've used for the Premier League, first run didn't look quite so good for League Two. Not necessarily because of Oldham. Oldham looked slightly higher mid-table. We had within the quartile range was seventh position, so just touching the playoffs. But I had Fleetwood at the top and Newport at the top and York City at the bottom, which there's something not quite right there. So I think I'd like to hope my biased prediction is that we make the playoffs, maybe do even better than that. But I think realistically, you have to think that playoffs are hopefully a likely outcome.
Yeah, we will have to see how our predictions go. So thank you, James, for joining us yet again.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we will COU later.